and the masters of the universe. I am Adam, Prince of Eternia and defender of the secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, "By the power of Grayskull!" Cringer became the mighty Battle Cat, and I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe.
What if they meet a monster in her dreams? Then what?
They turn their back on her, take away its energy, and it disappears.
But what happens if they don't do that?
Well, then I guess those people don't wake up to tell what happens.
It is literally impossible to be a woman. Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money, because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining.
Humans make things up like patriarchy, like patriarchy, like patriarchy, like patriarchy, like patriarchy.
You've been making women feel bad about themselves since you were invented.
I think you have that the wrong way around.
You represent everything wrong with our culture. Sexualized capitalism.
That's Barbie, a live-action movie about the iconic doll that's hell-bent on breaking the fourth wall and the glass ceiling. And shocking to no one, it's a story so rife with feminist wish fulfillment that it just about forgot about its own audience, not to mention reality itself. Hello again, I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Today's review of Barbie stars Margot Robbie as the titular character who lives in Barbie Land, the imaginary world where, as she puts it, women exist as powerful, happy, and free. But after a while, she begins to sense something wrong with that world, and that her problems may be connected to the world where humans exist. When Barbie becomes convinced that crossing into the real world is the only way to get answers about the strange happenings in her own, she reluctantly brings Ken, the stereotypical Aryan version, who quickly discovers the patriarchy and devises a plan to import that culture into Barbie Land, where he's always been a non-player character. From there, Ken becomes the lovable side villain, and Barbie must figure out how to reclaim Barbie Land from the patriarchy. And Gene, there's an unabashed spitefulness here that even the filmmakers admit to in the trailer we just showed, where they told the people who love Barbie and the people who hate Barbie that this movie is for both of them.
Yeah, a lot to say with this picture. It's a duality that might have worked had the subject matter been handled with more ideological maturity. But the polemics are so heavy-handed that you quite literally get lectured when the Gloria character goes into a long soliloquy about how hard it is to be a woman. The movie spends so much time desperately trying to make a persuasive feminist argument that it's hoping you'll either agree or change your mind, to the point where the characters become placeholders for an overarching political agenda. And how in the world is that supposed to be for people who love Barbie, as they so confidently claim?
Hard to imagine this is what Ruth Handler had in mind when she created the first Barbie doll. And it's interesting because the movie's lambaste falls into direct contradiction with Handler's conceptualization, which was based on her own daughter's vision of being a young adult. Meanwhile, writer-director Greta Gerwig wants you thinking patriarchy imposed this monstrous thing on women, when in reality it was a 10-year-old who told her mother what little girls preferred.
And you can't help but snicker at the Sasha character's remark about sexualized capitalism, because anyone familiar with the origins of the doll knows they initially couldn't convince any of the manufacturers that there was a market for it. And let's be honest with ourselves, if those physical ideals were unrealistic, then you wouldn't have people who regularly meet those ideals. And if the doll was making women feel bad about themselves, then how can anyone explain the incredible demand for them?
Because logic's but a minor inconvenience when you've got bigger fish to fry. And Gene, I'm reminded of a book called Simulacra and Simulation by cultural philosopher Jean Baudrillard, who explained the more times you simulate and reimagine an object or idea, the further away you get from the original representation. It's why engineered produce at the supermarket looks very different from produce at the farmer's market. And I bring this up because we've now had 4 waves of feminism, and with each iteration you can see how the simulacra reimagined and reproduced reality a little more each time. First wave feminists said they wanted to be equal to men. Second wave feminists said they didn't need men. Third wave feminists said we are men. And now fourth wave feminists think men are actually women.
And Gerwig's simulacra of the real world is exactly that. A reimagined world where women are caught in the riptide of a domineering patriarchy. As soon as she's in the real world, she's being fondled by some rando because that's apparently so common in the minds of these people. And get this, Roger, when Ken goes to the library to read up on patriarchy, he pulls 3 books off the shelf that aren't actually real publications. The titles, Men and Wars, The Origins of Patriarchy, and Why Men Rule Don't Exist, and neither do the authors.
And that's exactly what Baudrillard was talking about, simulated reality versus reality. They had to invent books extolling the virtues of patriarchy because the only existing books on the subject are in feminist literature, all of which present the simulated version of it. Gerwig knew Ken wasn't going to get the information he wanted from that. It's the re-engineered food you see at the supermarket versus the organic produce from the farmer's market.
I don't think any rational person watching this movie is denying or shrugging off women's issues, although you can certainly make the case that feminists have shrugged off others. What they're rejecting is this now 4th iteration that's hijacked the sacred art of filmmaking to project their own cynicism to both men and women so that they walk out of the theater feeling utterly demoralized.
Gene and I have always supported movies that boldly explore new ideas within the cultural zeitgeist, but when they're deceiving the audience to the point where history itself is being remembered wrong, then the intention is darker than you think. And to anyone who would claim it's uncharacteristic for Gene and I to be critics on today's wokeness, then I've got news for you, dum-dum. You may need to reevaluate which version of the simulation you've bought into. We've always called out political correctness for what it was. The footage I'm about to show you was from an independent film screening I attended back in the late 90s, where some guilty white man got up during the Q&A and proceeded to criticize the Asian filmmakers for not making his own people look good. Naturally, I had something to say about it.
Why would you, with the talent up there and yourself, make a film that's so empty and immoral for Asian Americans?
I think this guy feels like he has the right to tell us how we are supposed to exist in media. And then Roger Ebert gets up.
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people? This film has the right to be about these people, and Asian American characters have the right to be whoever the hell they want to be. They do not have to represent their people.
Gene, the fact that we can look back 25 years and see wokeness under a different brand should tell you how long this mind virus has been living with us. And I would say the only difference between now and then is how far the tentacles have stretched out to control everything we consume. And they don't just hit you over the head with it, there's also a subtlety involved. When Aryan Ken gets into an argument with Asian Ken, Gerwig uses wordplay to graft the image of homosexual innuendo into the heterosexual characters. It's the kind of subliminal line blurring you had from all the bromance comedies of a decade earlier.
But you don't even know how to beat yourself off. How are you going to beat both of us off? That doesn't make sense.
Nobody's going to beat anyone off.
Yeah, the message being that sexuality is fluid and orientation is a social construct. But that's nothing compared to how the filmmakers just throw away the relationship canon between Ken and Barbie. In this reimagining, Ken is little more than an attention-starved puppy begging for Barbie's attention. And here's looking at John Boyega in the Star Wars sequels, where his character was written to do exactly the same thing.
And there's always going to be messaging in films. It's why themes in movies exist. I've always said that an effective movie immerses you so much into the story that it makes you forget where you are and allows you to invest your empathy into its characters. And the reason it's almost impossible to have empathy for Gerwig's characters is because she's so lost in her own single-minded purpose that the movie is like an experience you'd have at a used car dealership where you know the salesman rehearsed his pitch before heading in that morning.
In this case, they seem to be rehearsing the pitch right in front of you because Roger, rather than creating empathy by presenting relatable characters, they just attempt what they think is a clever role reversal so that the men watching can see what it's like to be second banana. It's cheap because they don't earn the empathy, and also because the audience may not even view a traditional partnership role as being unequal. This movie makes way too many assumptions.
And I'll circle back to what you said earlier about making everyone walk out of the theater demoralized. Because by the end of the movie, when Barbie tells Ken she can't accompany him on his personal journey, it's like watching your parents get an uncontested divorce just so they can avoid the court fees and have less paperwork.
And therein lies the end game of this movie, the dissolution of the male-female relationship. Anyway, that's it for now. Roger and I will be taking hiatus because if we have to watch any more of this social engineering for the masses, we might have to be strapped into a straitjacket with our eyelids clamped open like Clockwork Orange. Until then, we'll see you at the movies, and the balcony is closed.